So like I usually do, I went digging through my DVD shelf to see if there was anything that I didn't want anymore, or just trying to see if there were any potential movies I could do videos on. And, well, I definitely came across one that I haven't seen in a very long time and thought, why the hell not? Especially since on Blockbusters show we've reviewed The Wild, which was like Disney's sort of rip-off of Madagascar that they were apparently making before Madagascar, but Madagascar got released first. And we also reviewed a bunch of sequels to Ben Stiller movies like Zoolander 2 and Night at the Museum 2. So now we're looking at another technically Ben Stiller sequel with Madagascar 2.
I like to move it, move it.
He likes to move it, move it.
She likes to move it, move it.
We like to move it.
Get your groove on.
We're gonna miss you, little fuzz buckets. Glad we can introduce you to the toilet.
Hey, surprise, freaks!
Whoa. I am coming with you.
Wait for me. I'm all packed.
Stop that thing! He's carrying scissors and hand cream.
Move it. I love you, Gloria. I always have.
Deploy!
Your favorite castaways are back, still together and still lost. One of the top movies of the year, DreamWorks Animations' Madagascar Escape to Africa is even better than the first, says Mark Hyman of Fox TV. You'll laugh out loud as this outrageous comedy takes you on an African adventure like no other. The Madagascar animals fly back to New York City, but crash land in an African nature reserve in Kenya, where they meet other animals of their kind, and Alex especially discovers his royal heritage as the prince of a lion pride. Also, I was going to use this as the video description as well. Alex, played by Eric Darnell, Morty, played by Tom McGrath, and other zoo animals find a way to escape from Madagascar when the penguins reassemble a wrecked airplane. The precariously repaired craft stays airborne just long enough for them to make it to the African continent. They couldn't even get the names of the actors right. Not only did they get one of the character names wrong, they listed the directors of the movie as the cast. What the fuck, Google descriptions? Seriously. I talked a little bit about Madagascar when I reviewed The Wild, but looking at Madagascar now, it's a very odd franchise because I see people discuss it in so many different ways. Not just Madagascar 2 good, Madagascar 2 bad. Now it's, oh no, it's the best of the franchise, or it's easily the best one, or oh no, this movie is bad. It's one of the worst Madagascar movies. It's the worst of the series. Oh, I like it ironically. It's actually so bad it's good. I just can't help but find it a little funny because all of this, all these different hot takes and radical opinions for Madagascar Escape to Africa. The plots of Madagascar, very simple. You got 4 New York zoo animals, and they end up landing on Madagascar because one of them was trying to leave the zoo to try and see life outside of it, and then the other 3 animals went to go look for him, but then they ended up getting tranquilized and put on a boat, and they were going to be sent back to Africa, but the ship ended up getting hijacked by a bunch of penguins who became the runaway successful spin-off characters. They got their own TV show and a movie. The penguins hijacked the boat, and as they turn the boat around to try and get to Antarctica, our 4 main characters end up going overboard, and then they land on the titular Madagascar, and it's a struggle for them to try and adapt to this island and see if they can survive in the wild after spending years in captivity in New York City Central Park Zoo. My knowledge of the Madagascar movies is as follows. I remember seeing the 3 main movies in theaters. I never saw the Penguins spin-off movie. There's a couple of Madagascar TV specials I never really watched, and there was that Penguins show on Nickelodeon, which I think I remember watching when it was on when I was a kid, but I don't really remember that much from it. But the point is, we're talking about Madagascar 2, which to some is the worst of the series, and to some it is the best of the series. So yeah, let's talk about it. So in the beginning of the movie, we establish that Ben Stiller's character of Alex the Lion, he was a lion cub who was eventually taken by some poachers off of an African animal reserve, and his dad, played by the late great Bernie Mac, was he was basically the Mufasa of their lion pride. He was supposed to be the big Lion King, as it were, and just like in Lion King, he has his own personal Scar. Except here he's played by Alec Baldwin, and for some reason his lion character is designed with a dad bod and a pompadour.
Before I kick your butt, let me ask you, why do you even want to become the alpha lion?
I'm better looking, I have better hair, I'm deceivingly smart, and I want everyone else to do what I say.
Talk about that character a little bit later, but for now, Alex, or Alec, as his birth name, his crate ends up going off the Jeep that the poachers were driving. His dad was chasing after him and apparently spent weeks chasing after them to try and find him. But Alex's crate lands in the river, ends up getting swept out to sea. He ends up in the New York harbor, and ever since then he was put into the Central Park Zoo, where he became the icon. And then they just kind of speed run the plot elements of the first movie through a brief little news report.
On the loose, several animals, including the world-famous Alex the Lion, the King of New York, escaped from the Central Park Zoo tonight. The escapees were finally cornered in Grand Central Station.
Then we cut back to the characters who, at this point, are still on Madagascar, and they're ripping to get out of there, because now they've taken the plane that the lemurs on the island used to live in the tree, and they have rebuilt it well enough so that they can fly it, but they also have to launch it out of a giant slingshot in the tree. Before they even remotely think about leaving, we gotta remind the audience of that hit song that was made popular again because of the first movie. So right away, as they're getting ready to board the plane and leave Madagascar for good, they hit us with that "I Like to Move It" song.
I like to move it, move it.
He likes to move it, move it.
She likes to move it, move it.
We like to...
That's another thing I'm going to talk about later, the music that's in this movie. But anyway, it's not just our four main characters, but we also have the penguins who are going to be flying the plane. We have the monkeys, because you remember them, and the lemurs tag along, except for the really small one, Mort, or whatever. No, they specifically try to keep him away because, you know, the other lemurs find him annoying.
So annoying! Don't let him on! Stop that thing! He's carrying scissors and hand cream!
I find that incredibly ironic because every time they felt the need to put the lemurs in the movie, it really felt like they were just trying to put as many characters from the first one in as possible. Like, it's not just enough that you have to have the penguins there. Like, the penguins, they're doing their own thing. But you still had to have fucking King Julian and his sidekick, played by Cedric the Entertainer. You had to have them come back, of course.
Maurice, I think they like me.
You got to love a non-hostile takeover.
All the while, Mort, the little one, periodically pops up throughout the movie because he ends up getting on the wing of the plane as it takes off, and then he shows up periodically, but that's not important.
Gremlin!
The plane temporarily works, but then, since it's a rundown old plane that they were just barely able to get back up and running with bamboo and coconut, it ends up short-circuiting, so the plane is about to crash, and they end up landing in, where else? Africa, in that same animal reserve, and here Alex the lion can finally come across his mom and dad once again. From here on in, the movie just kind of becomes a bunch of different subplots that kind of cross paths until the third act where everything finally intersects. But alright, let's go through each of the subplots. So Alex's subplot is that he's getting reconnected with his mom and dad, and since he says that he's the king of New York, they think that he's an actual, like, Lion King, an actual, like, leader of a pride or something like that. Even though, in reality, it's just a stage name that he uses. You know, he spends all of his day in a zoo, in confinement, dancing around and doing tricks. But of course, his parents don't realize that at first. That is until they have to put him through a rite of passage, which is this tradition where they have the cubs fight to show their mane and show their dominance. And of course, you know that's all going to go fuck up. And it doesn't help that you got big bad Alec Baldwin lion stepping in and trying to stir the pot and make things worse for Alex and his family. Because what he does is he convinces him to go up against this lion called Tsitsi, which is this big, ferocious fucking lion, and it kicks Alex's ass.
Okay, turn around!
No, Pop. It's pop, shuffle, ball change, hip swish, turn around.
I also established that in this rite of passage, if you end up failing, you're banished. So Alex's dad can't go through with banishing his son, so he steps down as the alpha lion. And then Alec Baldwin takes it away from him, continues to be obviously evil, and then they're banished to some kind of dusty desert.
Come on, shoot! Get out of here!
Now, first of all, I just have to say, I find it really funny that Bernie Mac is supposed to be the father of Ben Stiller. Like, I don't know what it is. There's just something that's really weirdly funny about that. But then I had to remind myself, well, in that other cartoon lion movie, they did have James Earl Jones play the father of one Jonathan Taylor Thomas / Matthew Broderick. So I guess it isn't too outside the realms of animated plausibility. But still, I don't know. Just that concept that Ben Stiller is supposed to be the son of Bernie Mac. I don't know, I couldn't help but find that funny. Honestly, I thought that Bernie Mac did an okay job as a voice actor. I mean, he was pretty much just playing, you know, himself, maybe a little bit older, tried to give a little bit more old gruff in his voice, but you know what? He actually did a decent job. And then you get to Alec Baldwin. Mr. Obvious Villain is obvious. His character in this movie, first of all, it just sounds like Alec Baldwin just playing himself. It's just Alec Baldwin reading lines off of a script. He's not really voice acting. I know people often criticize DreamWorks for that. They're sort of the ones that popularize the whole, let's just get famous celebrities to do voices so we can put their names on the poster, and then parents will feel comfortable taking their kids to a cartoon movie. But more importantly, his character in this movie, he is the most generic villain ever. Say what you want about Scar in Lion King, right? Scar is easily one of the best Disney villains, hands down. But this guy, I don't even remember his name, Makunga or whatever it is, like, he is just so obviously evil. Every scene he's in, he's just, yes, I'm going to plan to take over the lion pride so that everyone will have to kiss my feet and tell me that I'm perfect and great.
As your new leader, I hereby banish Alec. He shall wear this hat of shame and leave the watering hole for 1,000 years or life, whichever comes last.
There are even parts later on in the movie where it's like, what is his motivation? Why is he doing this? There's a part where, we're going to talk about this later, but in the third act, Alex ends up running off and his dad has to chase after him, and Alec Baldwin Lion goes to tell Bernie Mac Lion that, and you know, he's just like evilly like giggling to himself as Bernie Mac sprints across the savannah. And
Harry Zuba! I'm so parched.
I'm just thinking, what's his motivation for doing this? What, just to like possibly get rid of Bernie Mac, I guess? And then later when, you know, they obviously don't die and they come back, then he's just like, oh, well, you know, it's noble that you guys brought water back to the watering hole, but you know what? I'm still Alpha Lion and you're not.
If I remember correctly, you quit the pride and you were kicked out. So don't think for an instant that this changes anything.
Meanwhile, with Marty, the zebra, played by Chris Rock, his whole thing is that he comes across a herd of zebras that are all played by Chris Rock, and eventually Marty feels like his individuality is basically non-existent because all the zebras not only look like him, but talk like him, act like him, and can do basically anything he can.
Million points of light and dark stripes.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
So then later there are scenes where Alex can't tell Marty from the other zebras, and, well, it results in some awkward comedy like this.
I'm just like any other zebra.
No. Of course you're different.
How?
Okay, I can't tell you apart.
But then later in the third act, of course, when all the characters have to get together, Alex finally recognizes Marty for who he is because they're best friends, and that's the power of friendship and whatnot. Meanwhile, with Gloria, the hippo played by Jada Pinkett Smith, she's trying to find love, and once they land in Africa and, you know, all the animals are hanging out with their respective species, she comes across a male hippo called Moto Moto, played by William. I refuse to say Will I Am.
I like 'em big. I like 'em chunky. I like 'em big. I like 'em lumpy.
This results in probably the most memorable part of the movie, which is obviously the fucking Moto Moto song that got memed into oblivion. And talking about the music very briefly, you can tell that will.i.am was doing a lot of music for this movie. Like, there are so many songs where it's like, that's a will.i.am song. And I'm not surprised because this movie was, what, 2008, 2009? That was when Black Eyed Peas just reigned supreme. And in grand DreamWorks fashion, if they're not making constant pop songs for the soundtrack, they're using popular songs. Like, they use More Than a Feeling at one point.
Stop!
And they use Copacabana as well.
Oh, I like this song.
It never gets old.
It does have a catchy hook.
But really, the whole Gloria subplot is also to tie in with the giraffe Melman's subplot because, well, first of all, Melman becomes a doctor for giraffes and presumably other animals because, you know, he's so neurotic and always thinks that he has some kind of disease or some kind of sickness, so he becomes the witch doctor. But then the other giraffes put the idea in his head that he has witch doctor's disease, and it means he has only a few days to live. And, well, they established this super early on in the movie, like when they're still on the plane and, you know, on the way back to New York. But they established that Melman clearly has the hots for Gloria.
I love you, Gloria. I always have.
And as weird as it is, it's still less weird than a squirrel and a giraffe getting together, like in the wild. It's one of those kind of romance subplots in movies where, you know, two friends, perfectly platonic, one of them has feelings for the other thinks they find the perfect suitor for them, and then eventually that person confesses their feelings to the person who's, you know, going out with this suitor, and eventually she realizes that she's into him, and they end up getting together later on in the movie.
Found yourself the perfect woman. If I was ever so lucky to find the perfect woman, I would give her flowers every day. And not just any flowers, okay? Her favorites are orchids, white, and breakfast in bed. 6 loaves of wheat toast with butter on both sides, no crust, the way she likes it.
Now, all the while this is going on, you also have the penguins and the monkeys trying to fix the plane, and they recruit a bunch of other monkeys, and what they do is they start hijacking jeeps from tourists, and they're taking parts from the jeeps so that they can try and rebuild the plane. And, you know, the movie is constantly jumping around back and forth from subplot to subplot. And I would say it's a little sporadic, but I think that's the perfect way to describe the Madagascar movies. Like, even compared to other DreamWorks movies where it feels like they take more priority with the jokes than characters or plot, this movie really did a lot of jumping around. And there's definitely a lot of that with the animation. In these Madagascar movies in particular, you could definitely tell that they're putting a lot of like squash and stretch and have the characters like move around and do these like really outlandish movements. There's a lot of that in this movie. There are a few times where it feels like they do go overboard with it and just constant characters moving around and doing these exaggerated motions and whatnot. And part of me was just kind of like, okay, movie, slow down. Fucking take a chill pill, please. Okay, in the third act, we established this conflict because earlier on in the movie, they established that the humans, without their jeeps, start forming this little commune in the jungle, like outside the reserve. So eventually they built a dam, and the dam ends up cutting off the water supply to the watering hole for the animals in the reserve to get water. So Alex, wanting to redeem himself in the eyes of not just his father, but also, you know, all this group of animals, he heads off to try and get water back to the watering hole. That's when he picks up Marty. That's when Alec Baldwin Lion goes to tell Bernie Mac Lion that his son has gone off the reserve to try and get water. Then Bernie Mac Lion goes off to chase after his son and try and save him. They get to this commune of humans, and Alex ends up getting taken prisoner, so then Marty goes off to try and get Melman and Gloria. Meanwhile, King Julian convinces the other animals that they must sacrifice one of them to a volcano, and then the gods will bring water back. So, I guess in that way it is kind of like Lion King, in that, you know, after a while with Scar as ruler, there was no food or water. So Melman, thinking he has nothing left to live for, and this is after he's confessed his love to Gloria, you know, he decides that he wants to be sacrificed, so hopefully he can, you know, save all these animals. But Gloria confesses her love before he ultimately falls in to the volcano, and they get together. Marty shows up, tells them that Alex needs to be saved, so then they go to the penguins and the monkeys at the almost finished plane, basically, and there's this joke that the monkeys are now revolting against the penguins. They want, like, fair wages. It's basically a commentary on, like, worker strikes.
Did you see these commies have my hands tied here? No maternity leave.
This is a movie aimed at children and families, and you have a cartoon penguin say that he doesn't want to give a bunch of commie monkeys maternity leave. What the fuck is going on? They finish fixing the plane, they go to save Alex, Bernie Mac Lion shows up to save Alex as well, and once Alex realizes that all these humans are from New York, he starts doing his dance moves, and all the humans are now sympathetic and don't want to kill and eat the lion. Except for the old lady, because they brought back the old lady that beats the shit out of him from the first movie.
How do you like some of that?
Animated movie aimed at children and families that has a scene where a lion and an old lady beat the shit out of each other. He's about to shoot them, but, you know, the two lions are then saved by the plane, but because of a miscommunication problem, they turn the plane back around, and they're going to smash into the dam, and they end up doing that. So that brings the water back to the watering hole, and Alec Baldwin Lion is just so casually defeated by the old lady, because Alex gives him her handbag, and then when she comes to, she beats the shit out of Alec Baldwin Lion. An appropriate defeat for such an obvious fucking bad guy character. So then the penguins and the monkeys take a bunch of diamond and gold that the animals found earlier in a gag. Then they fly off to Monte Carlo because Skipper, the leader of the penguins, married a hula girl bobblehead that was in the plane. This is a thing that actually happens in this movie.
For better, please.
Yay! What a beautiful, weird couple! Yeah.
And apparently they actually remembered Monte Carlo because the beginning of the third Madagascar has them seek out the penguins in Monte Carlo at a casino. Go figure. But anyway, yeah, the movie ends with all those four lovable rapscallions getting together again, you know, as friends, and they're going to be spending the rest of their time in Africa. So overall, this movie, is it great? I wouldn't go that far. Is it entertaining? I would say that. I mean, the rapid pace can be a little bit annoying because we are constantly jumping between characters and all their subplots and all their problems, but I actually didn't mind it. I felt that the movie went by fast. There was a really good handful of jokes that actually did make me laugh. There was nothing really too obnoxious in this movie, although some of the comic relief that goes on a little too long, that does get tired, but it's nowhere as bad as some of the other comedies that I've reviewed where it's just non-stop unfunny ad-lib. It's really funny to think about that because one of the writers for this movie would later go on to write and direct one of the worst comedies of the last decade in the 2010s with that shitty-ass Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, Holmes and Watson movie.
I will take it. You see, it's sort of a self-photograph.
He's a real fan.
I swear, I never do this.
Hey, girl!
Tiger!
Talk about a fall from grace. You start doing Madagascar 2 and then you end up doing Holmes and Watson. Yeah, the voice actors do a perfectly fine job. The characters are likable enough. Even if some of the newer characters, like, again, the villain, super obvious villain, and he's defeated in probably one of the easiest ways possible. But, I mean, otherwise, entertaining enough movie. It's certainly not a terrible family movie or kids movie. It's fine for what it is. Don't really know how to compare it to the first Madagascar. Probably should have watched that before I watched this one, but you know, for what it is, it's good. It's probably the best Ben Stiller sequel I reviewed. I liked it more than Zoolander 2, and I liked it more than Night at the Museum 2. Not by a whole lot, but I will say, out of those three, it's way better than Zoolander 2. So, way to go, Madagascar, Escape to Africa. You're better than Zoolander 2. So that does it for Blockbusters in August. Look forward to next month where we're going to be doing 3 more reviews. Till then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of The Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Alex the Lion, what the hell are you doing in my car?